If you are hunting trouble, lad, you found it.
Hello. Oh, excuse me. Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new video. In this video, I'm going to be doing an unboxing and probably review of Dungeons & Dragons Castle Ravenloft, the board game, which is something I used to have years ago, but I sold it like an idiot. I painted only a few of the figures, so I want to remedy that, and also do some playthroughs for it on the channel. So yeah, it's a big board game, barely even fits into the frame. A very reflective shrink wrap here. So yeah, let's just get this right open. Cut the shrink wrap off here. Very big box too, very big box. I'd say, yeah, pretty much thicker than the average board game, like I'd say, a good few centimeters more taller than the average board game. Let me get this shrink wrap off. And not going to show the back of the box because I do not want to spoil the contents of it. Ooh. A lot of stuff looking at us already, but see that beautiful, beautiful cover art. I do not know who the artist was on this, but he did an excellent job. That looks amazing. Very cool visual of a vampire. So let me just place that on the ground real quick. And we have the rule book. Yeah, my phone can barely get any of this in frame. I apologize. I could maybe one day probably get like an actually professional camera, but you know, all I have right now is a phone. A big, nice colored rule book. Has an FAQ on the back. Table of contents, introduction, game overview, etc. It's just, yeah, game setup, taking turns. Yeah, just the basic stuff, you know, just like the basic stuff you'd expect from a rule book, right? And it is a pretty simple game. You know, it's a very modular too. You can use like all of the other D&D adventure system games with this one to sort of mishmash, or even to just like have a monster randomizer on a specific one if you want to do that. And this is just a pamphlet advertising regular Dungeons & Dragons along with some of the essentials and rule books, which, yeah, I think this is like, it's a much more casual version of D&D. It's a much more casual realm than what you'd get out of regular, full, actual D&D, which I much prefer, honestly. You know, just like a good old-fashioned dungeon crawler. You know, you have your heroes, you have monsters, special items, actions, etc. And here's actually is a string-bound adventure book, which, was the first one string-bound? Yeah, the first one was string-bound, so it isn't fully paper. It's got a little bit of string to hold it together, which I guess makes sense if you're going to be opening a lot. But, yeah, it's the adventure book. It has all the different missions laid out and stuff. Very cool stuff. Very generic statement, but it is true. You know. So the first cardboard stack right here is going to be some tiles, freezing cloud, sun, slowed, howling hag, some HP damage, traps, activate, hero takes 1 damage, HP counters, which I'm guessing you just put on your character card as they take damage, and a bunch of tiles. And on the other side is going to be more dungeon tiles, more monster and item tiles, basically. I remember, yeah, you got, hold on, show you guys. This is about 4 thick So that's a lot of stuff in there. You get a lot of stuff on the cardboard sort of sprue, I guess you could call it. But yeah, here's the big plastic thingy, which has a lot of the miniatures in bags. It has a big old stack of cards for player actions. I know items, stuff like that too, and counters, yeah. So the different monsters you'll be encountering. I'll show off the miniatures later, probably, after I get all of this other stuff out. And then at the bottom of this is just more dungeon tiles. So yeah, let me get this out first. Yeah, that's a lot. That's another. Oh, this is 6 wide. Excuse me, I'll put it in miscount. No, I think this is like 8 or 9 wide. That is like so many tiles. A start tile, which is just huge, by the way. These take up a lot of table space. So if you have a smaller table, I'd recommend like maybe just playing the smaller missions, or like limiting your tile selection, whatever. Here's the card for the undead sort of big bad boss guy, which is very cool. But yeah, give me a minute and I will get the miniatures out to showcase. Okay, so wow, after spending the last half hour of unpacking stuff off camera, there is so much more to this game than I remember, sheer content-wise. And it is astonishingly large, right? So I'm just going to show you guys the miniatures and some of the stat cards and stuff, but I cannot show the tiles at all because there's just too many. There's just too many map tiles, too many tokens and markers. It's just so much. And if I did it, we would be here like literally all night. And it's already like 1 a.m. here, so I want to get this over with. But okay, all right. So for the first set we got here, we have the heroes, which yeah, it's probably not gonna be able to get good angles of any of these. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Yeah, looks a little bit crusty, but that's what we're going with. That's what we're going with. Oh. There we go. Turn on the flashlight, which doesn't help at all. Yeah, okay, 1% difference. But here are the 5 heroes, which is going to be a, see if I can try to get this in order. Try to get them in order. It's going to be a human ranger, which is this character, which doesn't at all look like a ranger. Doesn't even have a bow, just has 2 swords. And it doesn't much look like the art either. Yeah, I don't see much resemblance besides just the long hair and the cape. This sort of has like a real nature-based, like a sort of Native American kind of look to it, elven. And this doesn't. This, I'm not really like, yeah, I don't really see the resemblance. I don't think they're really the same character. It was probably just like some random sculpt they had lying around and they had to use. Or they didn't want to bother sculpting new one. But here's the character card. Alyssa, the Human Ranger. Armor class of 15, HP of 8, speed of 6, and a surge value of 4. You have Scout. And 1 utility power, 2 will powers, and 1 daily power. Which I'm not going to read out the stats for all these, but yeah, that's the first level. Which, excuse me, copyright 2010? Didn't this come out in like 2015? Am I tripping? And the fact they still produce and sell these in 2025 too is nuts. Like, I didn't get the second hand, I got this fresh from retail. And yeah, they tend not to keep stuff on them for that long. But here's the level 2 stats. So it was an armor class. Okay, it's 1 point higher. It's a little bit better, When you attack and roll an natural 20, you deal +1 damage for level 2. So that's, slightly different. Next up is the dwarf. Yeah, it's pretty typical dwarf cleric sculpt, but it's completely different than the art. The art looks like completely different. The beard is different. The shoulder pads don't have any spikes. Yeah, it's completely different character for the artwork. It's like you guys really couldn't just like, I don't know if you just had these sculpts lying around. You really couldn't just get an artist that could just make art of these sculpts specifically instead of just doing like generic art. This is probably just reused stock asset art. Is probably what these are. But yeah, armor class of 16. Basically, a healer for first level. Second level, just a little bit more HP and one more armor class. And then the next one up is going to be Cat, the human rogue. Yeah, it certainly looks like a rogue. You know, it's got a throwing knife and a short blade. Doesn't really look much like the art, different hairstyle. Armor is vaguely similar. I don't think there's a cape on this one, is there? Yeah, there is, but it's more like low-lying. Is there, no midriff? I don't think it... Hold on, let me look at this in person. Yeah, there's not really even a midriff like there is in the art. It's like, yeah, more just like stock art reusage. But here's the stats. Critical hit, which is a pretty generic one. But yeah, that's the human rogue. And yeah, a problem that persists throughout this box is the bent blades. But I'm gonna be honest, like I don't think anybody's really gonna care unless you're like really privy to the details of your miniatures. I don't think anybody's gonna really care that much. But here is let me get the miniature first. Emuriel, the Elder and the Wizard. Pretty generic wizard sculpt, I'd say. Oh, excuse me. And for the art on the card, looks absolutely nothing like it, as per usual. Basically, yeah, you have all these wizard magic stuff, etc., etc. You guys know how wizards work. And then the last one, which is the Dragonborn Fighter, Jiren. Has a big axe. Is in like a sort of a pose. I can certainly call it a pose, right? Is in a sort of pose. Another thing that's pretty noticeable on these figures is the mold lines. You guys will see they get pretty thick and heavy. The mold lines, they get very thick and heavy. Let me show the card. Artwork looks nothing like the figure, or vice versa. But yeah, highest armor class, they get Dragon's Breath. Basically just the generic sort of a warrior loadout. You just hit things really hard. That's your purpose, that's your use. So yeah, let me move these guys all to the back. And let me move up some monsters. We'll be doing the sort of more bestial forms first. Alright, so on the first class of enemy, which is Beast, and these are all like low tier, are going to be your level 1 and 2 enemies, right? So the first one is the Wolf, which yeah, you can see the mold lines and flashing are nasty on this one, absolutely. Whole just chunks just sticking out of mold line residue, you know, leftovers. It's really gross and weird. But I think I remember the ones I had as a kid were like perfectly fine. Like the mold lines were minimal. But I think it's just because they've been making this set for so long. The molds themselves are super old, or like the mold slippage is getting really bad. Because in some of the multi-part figures, some of the figures that require more parts, right? It's like they're put together so terribly, so poorly, that there's like massive gaps in it, and I'll show you that in a second. But yeah, this is a wolf. It's, you know, they could have tried a little bit harder, but it looks alright, you know, for like a cheap little plastic board game wolf. It looks alright. It looks okay. And next up is the kobold, which, yeah, absolutely no complaints here. It looks like a kobold, you know. Got a little spear, he's got some armor on. The pose is a little bit weird, the way he turns his torso, like, all the way around, like, you could see that, like, what, they could have just done, like, one that was looking forward. I don't know if it was, like, excuse me, if it was a limitation of the mold or what they had to work with or what. But yeah, it's a kobold, you know, perfectly happy with it. Only 1 out of the 3 has a bent spear, so that is a good thing. And next up is a ghoul. Which, yeah, they have all the names stamped on the bottom and what type of enemy they are also. But yeah, I love the ghoul. It's my favorite sculpt in the whole box. Favorite or second favorite in the whole box. It's just really cool looking. You know, it serves its purpose. It's a ghoul. You know what it is when you look at it. Next up is an angry swarm of beans. I'm guessing this is like what your intestines see after you eat Mexican food and it attacks you while you're on the toilet, something like that. But yeah, the rat swarm. Rat swarm, not as impressive as some of the other rat swarm miniatures I've seen in my life, but it's certainly a swarm of rats. You know, you could not paint this, and I don't think people would complain, considering it looks pretty much like a swarm of rats right now, anyway. But yeah, that's the rat swarm, angry bean swarm, and the spider, the big spider. Classic fantasy enemy, and you can see this sort of gap here. Let me try and get the one where it's actually bad at, like really noticeable. This one right here. Yeah, really noticeable gap. They really should have went through quality control with that one. Or at least press down a little bit harder. It's like, come on, Chinese slave factory workers, press down a little bit harder for my little plastic spider figure I paid money for. Like, you know, you guys get what I mean. But yeah, the molds are like getting old, or the mold slippage is just really bad because it just looks like it wouldn't have even fit together very well to begin with. So yeah, that's it for the beast. Actually, you know what? No. I'll just I'll just do the rest of them without cutting the video. I'll just pause it instead of doing a video file. But yeah, that's it for the beast category enemies. Here's a really quick one. We have the sort of miscellaneous translucent enemies, I'm going to call them. Translucent plastic. First up, we have a phantom here. Which, yeah, it's a phantom. It looks pretty cool. It looks very cool, actually. I like it. And next up is one of my favorite miniatures of all time, honestly. And that's the Flaming Skeleton. Who's a skeleton completely engulfed in fire. Who looks like he's throwing a Hadouken or a Kamehameha. He just looks cool, honestly. That's literally all I can say. He just looks cool. He looks even cooler when you paint him. You know, if you want to, you can paint just the skeleton and have the fire stay translucent. But no, I paint these in a classic board game color, so I'm going to be painting the fire, you know, green, yellow, or blue for the tricolor board game, you know, aesthetic that I like to do on stuff. So yeah, on to the next enemies. And here is the common undead. The first one up, we have a classic skeleton. Skeleton with a sword and a shield, standing on top of a rock. Although I probably personally would have preferred if it was just standing straight up or something. You know, it could have even been in the same pose. I don't know why they had to put that, like, action rock there, you know, as some miniatures do. Oh, excuse me. The action rock. Patent in the action rock. But yeah, here's a zombie, which looks like he's doing Thriller, another classic fantasy enemy. The sort of leather or like old cloth he's wearing as a loincloth looks like it's tiger leather or something, which is like really weird. Like, is this supposed to be the zombie of Tarzan or something? I don't know. But you know, it's alright. Looks alright. Mold lines are kind of noticeable, very thick. Yeah, I think it is just mold slippage from age. I'm gonna say that for the 15th time because it needs to be iterated for the 15th time. But here we go. Here's the gargoyle. A very, very cool mini. He's got like a massive underbite, overbite, whatever it's called, with like these sort of hog horns sticking out of his mouth, hog tusk. A very different approach to gargoyle head design. But yeah, it looks really cool. He looks really cool. On to the first set of special enemies here in a second. Alright, so for the first set of special enemies, we have the Hag, which, yeah, looks like a hag. She's a howling hag. Does some spooky magic or whatever, has some mind control, mind altering effects, etc., etc. Pretty standard fantasy stuff. Has a little broom, which I don't even know why even give her a broom if it's gonna look this pathetic, but on to the next thing. We have the Kobold Sorcerer. And yeah, these are all like mini bosses, sort of. I'd say what category they're in. Yeah, mini bosses. Kobold Sorcerer, which is pretty small. He's in scale though with the other kobolds. Let me see, actually. Yeah. He's perfectly in scale with the other kobolds. He's got a little robe, trying to look intimidating. Yeah. And next we have Strahd, also known as the Young Vampire. Yeah, great sculpt, excellent sculpt, the best of sculpts. But yeah, you can use him as both the Young Vampire mini-boss and as Strahd himself, which is the boss of all bosses. And the last one, which is the Werewolf. Yeah, it looks like a werewolf doing a running pose, kind of goofy looking. I think they definitely maybe could have done a different pose, or like just did something else. And yeah, as you can tell, it's also a female werewolf, not a male werewolf, which is kind of rare to get female werewolf models. But I think they definitely could have like maybe tried to make it more bulky and traditionally werewolf looking than like feminine. But maybe there's some like piece of lore I'm missing. Probably is. But yeah, let's stop fumbling with the miniatures inside. Get on to the sort of last category, which is going to be the big bosses. Alrighty then, and for the big bosses, first of all we have the zombie dragon, which is, as you can see, a zombie dragon, half decayed sort of. A lot of mold lines present still on it. Yeah, no like part separation or anything because it's all one part, but a lot of mold lines still. So I'd be very annoyed. I will be very annoyed when I inevitably clean the mold lines off these later. The next up on the docket is the Flesh Golem, which looks very cool. I like it. I will probably also enjoy painting this guy. He's got a lot of small detail to pick out, like the stitches and the brain, stuff like that. Looks really cool. Excuse me, not the brain, just the head. Not specifically a brain or anything. And yeah, the last one in the box is the Greystone Darlich. It's a beautiful model, honestly. Beautiful model. It's just, well, let me zoom out here. Beautiful model. It's just, as you can see, there's a lot of separation and like pieces that just don't look right. And what you have to do to fix this is just go over it later with some milliput, which is what I'm going to do, or green stuff, before you paint the model. So yeah, but it looks great, though. It looks great. Excellent, 2011 Hasbro. This, hold on. Let me check the rulebook real quick. Didn't this come out in like 2015? There's gotta be like some. No way it's that old. I feel like I'm like Groundhog Day or something. Over such a trivial matter too, but 2011. What? They're still producing this like 14 years. Bro, that's crazy. Excuse me. You're still producing this 14 years after the fact. That's insane. I thought this came out like in 2015. I guess I'm wrong. But yeah, that's probably why the sculpt's so primitive. Like it looks like something from like 2006. Some of these could also be, this one particularly looks like something from the 90s. Could also be like a reuse sculpts from like old stuff. Because I do know they did make some sort of predecessors that became the adventure system earlier than this point. But yeah, that'll be it for this video. I'll do some other videos about this game, whether it be painting the models or doing some quick little adventures, because they do have a lot of single player adventures, and and like really quick stuff in the box. But yeah, that'll be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys, whatever other thing, YouTube thing. And yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Alrighty, so just one last little addendum to the video. This is all the components spread out. I just got done washing these down with soapy water to get the mold release off so I'll be able to paint them easier. And yeah, you get 3 of each common monster besides the mini bosses. Besides the bosses and the mini bosses. And yeah. You get all of these tokens and stuff, all these cards, can't speak right now, all these tiles, all of this, like so much of it, so much of it. You could do like regular D&D with all these dungeon tiles too. If you just needed like a cheap set of cardboard dungeon tiles for specifically a castle setting, there you go. You get like literally dozens and dozens, I don't know the exact amount, but like a lot, it's a lot. You get all these monster tokens and stuff, all the hero cards, the dice, the tokens and everything. But yeah, is it a good value for what you're paying? Yes, 100%. For 65, you could use this, just as is for specifically the board game itself, but also for regular D&D, for homebrew, whatever. It's amazing value. It's amazing value for 65. But yeah, that's it, and that's the real end of the video. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all later. Yeah.